I feel a wave just brewing up. It might be
someone's surfing on it.
Tulsi time. That's right, everyone, ladies and gentlemen. It's Tulsi time. But it's a good Tulsi Gabbard story. It has to do with an article from The Intercept. By the way, you guys can see all our stories, our show notes in the description box below.
Address the super chat.
Yes, we also got a super chat too. It says it's from Teresa 78201. Thank you for the super chat. Welcome home, Mr. Cabello. And guys, I am the original Kit Cabello. No, not his evil twin.
No, it is his evil twin.
Yes, I am.
We're getting the evil twin until there's a shipping thing, and he's kind of here first until Kit gets here. So there you go.
So let's talk about this good news. So you guys remember that quandary with Russia and Russiagate and how everyone's afraid of Russia interfering in this election? 2016, oh no, Russia interfered. Well, it turns out, like we always knew, it's a bunch of BS. Now, why is it BS? Because this was propaganda, because the corporate media wanted to control this narrative saying, well, this is why Clinton lost, because Russia got involved. Not the case at all. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry, corporate media. Sorry, DNC establishment. You're wrong, and here's how we can embarrass them. This is an article from Glenn Greenwald from The Intercept. So, NBC News published a particularly viral story Friday claiming that experts, remember that, experts who track websites and social media linked to Russia have been stirrings of possible campaign of support of Hawaiian Democrat Tulsi Gabbard, but the whole story was a sham. The only expert, that's right, an expert cited by the DNC of its key claim was the firm New Knowledge, which just got caught by the New York Times. I'm surprised it did that. New York Times fabricating Russia troll accounts on behalf of the Democratic Party. Say it ain't so. The DNC would never do something this insidious. They're always these keen-eyed eagles of vigilance and truth, right? Oh, no, but it gets worse. So, what do I mean? I'm going to be a little evil about this.
Like an evil twin?
Yeah, possibly. To justify its claim that Gabbard is the Kremlin candidate, NBC stated an analyst at New Knowledge, the company the Senate intelligence company used to track Russian activities in 2016, told NBC News that they spotted chatter related to Tulsi Gabbard in anonymous online message boards. What NBC concealed, here's what they did, is the fact that this is journalistic fraud, that the same firm, New Knowledge, was just caught 6 weeks ago engaging in a massive scam to create fictitious Russian troll accounts on Facebook and in Twitter in order to claim that the Kremlin was working to defeat Democratic Senate nominee Doug Jones in Alabama. Wow. Why are they doing this? It's almost like they're trying to get paid and be on people's good sides, but hey, what do I know? New Knowledge report that boasted its fabrications, we orchestrated an elaborate false flag operation that planned the idea that Roy Moore's campaign was amplified on social media by Russian botnet. That fraud was then overseen by New Knowledge CEO Jonathan Morgan. Morgan was fabricating Russian troll accounts and using them to create fraudulent appearance that Putin was trying to defeat the Democratic Senate candidate. Wow, just like Biden said, Putin doesn't want him to be president. Putin's somehow involved in everything. Putin's this great evil mastermind. No relation to my evil twin. Oh no, what's
you mean your good twin?
Uh-oh. I'm giving it all away. So, right now, interesting enough, Doug Jones insisted that he had no knowledge of the scheme and now has called for a federal investigation into New Knowledge. This group of experts on which NBC has principally relied on to spread its horribly run stories on Tulsi Gabbard, saying that she is this candidate that's chosen by the Kremlin, it's once again proving false. And thank goodness that we here at Heartlands Media were able to see through this BS immediately when it started in 2019. Because there's been nothing but countless articles smearing Tulsi Gabbard as an Assad apologist, as someone who's in support of Russia or has Russian backing. Again, there's no information. All of this is fraudulent information because this is a company that's basically created fake Russian accounts. They're the ones spreading this misinformation. And then NBC has the audacity to say, oh, these guys are the experts. They're fabricating everything. And then they go after Tulsi Gabbard, who, her biggest sin was going up against the DNC establishment. And then you have Hillary Clinton, of all people, well, of course it's in her character, to then say about Tulsi Gabbard, who served 16 years in the Hawaiian National Guard, 7 years in the United States Congress, that, oh, she's a Russian asset. No wonder she's getting sued by Tulsi Gabbard. And you know what? It's long overdue that someone holds Hillary Clinton accountable. But there's more to this. So the only other so-called expert cited by NBC in support of its claim that Russian accounts are supporting Tulsi Gabbard is someone named John Russell. Oh, wow. Who NBC identified as Josh Russell. Russell, Russell, however you want to tout him as, a researcher and troll hunter known for identifying fake accounts. In reality, Russell is someone CNN last year touted as an Indiana dad, an amateur troll hunter. With a full-time job unrelated to Russia, he works as a programmer at a college whose hobby is tracing online Russian accounts. Dude, find a better hobby. I grow tomatoes. That's my hobby, okay? It's fun to do. It's relaxing. You don't have to make this lie. You don't have to live in a lie. Get out of that bubble because you know what? You're a fraud. And all this information smearing Tulsi Gabbard has not stood. All it's doing right now is helping her successfully launch her campaign in Iowa and New Hampshire because she hasn't gone anywhere. Look at the lengths that corporate media went to go to smear Tulsi Gabbard. She's unapologetic. She's not a Russian asset. She's not a Assad apologist. She's none of these things. She's a patriot and someone who's fighting for progressive issues. So if that's the thing that the DNC and corporate media is trying to run on, Russia, well, it turns out it's all a fraud. And there comes a point where we have to look at corporate media and say to them, we don't believe you anymore because you only work for the top 1%, the DNC and RNC establishment, Wall Street, big banks, and major corporations. So I want to hand this over to the rest of the team because this is a very long article from The Intercept. Glenn Greenwald did a fantastic job. But again, short summary, Russiagate, Russia bots, Russian interference into our election is nothing but one big lie. It was a lie in 2016. It's a lie now, and Tulsi Gabbard is once again standing strong. I wish her all the best, especially for the Iowa caucus. We'll see how she turns out in this one. I know that her campaign worked hard in Iowa and in New Hampshire. We'll see how that all turns out in the long run. But again, newsflash, Russiagate, joke, Ukrainegate, a joke, and this whole impeachment stuff, and Russia, nothing but propaganda. Paul, take it away.
It can't go without saying this is an article by Glenn Greenwald, who is going through some freedom of speech and freedom of journalism issues in Brazil at the moment, and he deserves all of our support. That's a story we've covered earlier on this show. But he's super right, and this is the right way to evaluate things like this. The Democratic Party and stalwarts in the press have gone off on this Russia thing, and it all got swirled over the last 3.5 years now into what we have as the impeachment, which is now failed in its trial and could very easily set even more precedent to just allow explicitly partisan impeachment of other people, which is a thing they're fear-mongering about. It's like, well, you guys opened this door and you kept saying all we need to do is get everybody on board and get everyone to believe it. It's like, well, you didn't get everyone to believe it because there really isn't a lot there. And what is there is not the thing that you're focusing on. You're focusing on these boogeymen that you're making up. And you're trying to now take that thing that you've been pushing, and it's like, we've been pushing this for so long, people should be on board with it. And there are some people who are super, super on board with like, oh, no, it was definitely Russia. And there are those of us who like, hey, you haven't really presented that cohesive of a case or actual evidence to prove these very, very hyperbolic claims. And we point out the number of bombshells that they have that get poked holes in almost immediately. If you could go through and catalog all of that, the amount of like, oh my God, the Russians are at the door stories versus the like, well, okay, this person contacted that person and we don't really know why or what, or like, okay, I guess we're not allowed to have communication with people who live in that country at all anymore. But then this kind of stuff comes out where it's obvious that they're trying to take their narrative and bombshell it again, adding another thing to that pile of like, oh my God, Russia. And it's just like the tiniest little pokes a hole directly in it. It's like, well, you mean the company that you've been working with?
Right, and there's one other thing too that I forgot to mention too, because the article also mentions how apparently this firm that the DNC was relying on also said that RT and Sputnik were definitely saying that Tulsi Gabbard was this person that was going to ruin Biden and Bernie Sanders' campaign, when in fact Tulsi Gabbard made her announcement to run way before Bernie or Biden did. And more importantly, they got their information so screwed up that they made an announcement before Sanders or Biden made their announcements to run. So again, whenever corporate media is kind of spew a lie against an independent candidate, a progressive candidate, or a third-party candidate, just remember, they're in it to control a narrative, and that's their own corporate narrative. And sadly, this is a state where media is in, and this is why Heartland's Media exists in the first place. Myself and Daniel were there in Philadelphia in 2016. This is why we created Heartland's Media, and this is why we're trying to make sure that you guys are empowered to know how to stand up against the system and call out propaganda when we see it. Daniel, what's the final word?
So a couple things. So I can only imagine them finding this like anonymous chat, and it's like on 4chan. And they're like, "Hey, you gonna vote for Tulsi?" Lols, yeah. And they're like, "Oh, we got it. That's it. We found it." And so here's the other thing. Russiagate. What happened when that came out? All of mainstream media was like, "Yes, yes, go for it. It's right for sure." What did Hardlands Media say? This seems a little bit untrue. This doesn't seem like it has a lot of evidence. I don't trust the players involved. I don't really think this is an issue. What turned out happening? Fabricated event. 1 point Hardlands Media, 0 points all of mainstream media. What happens next? When we move from Russia, this big giant country, and then we move to this neighbor right next to it, Ukraine Gate happens. What does mainstream media say? Oh, there's a huge deal. I mean, we have a phone call, and the phone call happened. We have to, like, freak out about this. What did Hardlands Media say when this happened? That doesn't seem like something that's really impeachable. That doesn't seem like something that we really should focus on. Hey,
And it
there's
was all
this
made up in the
there's
first
this stuff in
place.
Saudi Arabia that's happening that maybe we could talk about because it's literal genocide. But, right, no, the Democrats, we understand the game. The Democrats are just as corrupt in this, so they're going to go with the thing like that, even though it turns out Biden and his son are basically corrupt in the exact same way, but whatever. Then what happens? It falls apart, doesn't go anywhere. What do we have next? Impeachment. What do we say? Guys, we've been focused on this way too long. We're at a point where we're completely ignoring the election as it is happening in real time. What does mainstream media say? This is the thing we need to do. This is the thing we need to focus on. This is the thing we have to do. What did the Democratic Party say? This is the thing we have to do. This is the thing we have to do. We have to do it this way specifically. We're only going to talk about Ukraine. We're not going to bring in anything else, something that might have actually helped. But no, they didn't do that. What then happens? Impeachment falls apart. Who has called it the entire time? A group of people who are in real time trying to start up a news company have got it right 3 times.
More than 3 times, man.
0, just
Way
in
more.
these specific cases. What does that tell you? To quote Jimmy Dore, if we can see this happening with so few resources, they can see it happening.
But
But
Daniel-
what they're doing is instead pretending. They're making all of it up because for the news media, it's good ratings. For the Democratic Party, it's a distraction. The reality is, this has been a failure since 2016. This is a call on the entire way they do things. If Bernie Sanders wins, everything that they've said this entire time, their house of cards collapses. So they're going to talk about whatever the Democratic, they're just going through the motions in a system that's dying in real time.
Yeah. So real quick, guys, corporate media is nothing but a fraud. It's nothing but a joke. And again, when they say this narrative of Russiagate, it's lazy journalism. It's there to make you guys afraid. We're better than that. We're not going to be living in fear. We're not going to be huddling in our corner afraid or hiding underneath our beds. No, no, no. It's time for us to step up and break this system down because for too long, people have been hurt. We're not talking about the issues that are impacting Americans. Every day, every year, every year, 500,000 Americans go bankrupt because of unpaid medical bills. You have this ridiculous student debt that's hanging over millions of Americans' lives. We don't have debt forgiveness. We have to deal with climate change, which is a real threat to humanity. We have a crumbling infrastructure. Just flying back in from Japan, whose infrastructure and transportation is incredible. When I got here to Chicago, my God, night and day. I wish we had something like theirs. We have fallen behind. And so when Bernie Sanders or Tulsi Gabbard actually speak about actually building this country up and making us strong again, corporate media wants to send out a lie. So they'll say Russiagate. They'll say something stupid. That's why we're here, to debunk them, because they had their time and they're done. So now we have to move
I
on.
want to say very quickly before we move on that right now, what are they doing in Iowa? Have they learned their lesson?
No.
They are right now trying to find the best way to make Bernie Sanders' probable upcoming win seem like, oh, it's either a fraud because he said words earlier than he should or because of something else. This is access journalism. It's basically tabloid. If we were in the 20s, we would just call it yellow journalism. It's billionaires owning used to be news companies pretending to do news, but they're just going through the motions and they're paid a lot of money to lie. That's all this is.